Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a bit of a vlog, I suppose we can call it. I'm your lovely host, Kailvin, and we're going to be talking about something today. If you couldn't tell by the title, it's going to be Gamergate. Now, personally, I like to stay full clear of political shitmires that come as a result of these sorts of things. However, I've been forcefully involved in this. How so? Well, I was blackmailed, actually. Now, I'm professional about this sort of thing, so I'm not going to name names about who did it, or the exact contents of it, but here's the gist of it. A game company who I've had dealings with in the past sent me an email saying that they disapproved. How do you do air quotes again? These are air quotes, right? Yeah. Of one of, or at least a few of the comments I've made in my videos, and said that if I didn't keep my trap shut about Gamergate, that they would never do business with me again. Now, I have a pretty simple rule about things. Don't try and blackmail me. It doesn't end well. Seriously. I shouldn't have to remind you guys 50 Shades of Shen. That wasn't the result of blackmail, but it does prove I'm ballsy enough to get up and publicly do a lot of things that are silly, at the very least. Now, if you don't know about 50 Shades of Shen, just go look it up. Go look it up. Now, Gamergate started back mid-August. Actually, I have a timeline of events here. Open. Here we are. August 16th, 2014. What an era that was. When Zoe Quinn's ex-boyfriend, Zoe Quinn being the developer of Depression Quest, and I don't know if she developed any other games, decided to accuse her of sleeping with 5 men, as well as abusive behavior, but oh well. That's not my position to comment on, that's for a court of law. And these 5 men that she allegedly slept with were all members of gaming press, and it was to get positive coverage for her game. Which is a pretty serious allegation in of itself, because that's not just an allegation against her, that's an allegation against gaming media. And although ultimately I would like to point out that these allegations turned out to be completely unfounded, there's still to this day no evidence that she slept with anyone. But at the time, it kicked off a bit of a probe, and people started asking questions about the ethics behind gaming media, which is always healthy to do. It's always healthy to be skeptical. And this started to create a bit of a political shitstorm, as it were. Oof, I need to catch my breath. Talking too much. Alright, here we are. Political shitstorm, because there is, to say the least, a huge quantity of corruption going on in the games press. And in particular, I suppose just jump to the next major event. A bunch of gaming websites got together and posted a bunch of articles calling gamers are dead, is the general tagline of the articles. And it basically talked about how gamers as we know it are teens, 20-somethings, white men in basements playing video games well into the night. Let's see, times. Okay. Well, I'm probably not in the best position to be commenting on that. Yeah, that, needless to say, pissed a lot of people off. And the severe timing of these articles kicked off another round of questions. And another round of questions came with another round of answers, as we learned through some leaks that gaming journalists actually got together and colluded to decide what games and what would be talked about in gaming press. This included websites like Kotaku and Gawker, and yeah, they got together. There's a secret, like, I think it was actually like a Google group or something. Really, there's not a better way to communicate? You're really using, like, Google chat groups? Yeah, shit, you guys do deserve to die. Alright, well. So, they colluded together and decided what would and would not get coverage. Which is a pretty scary concept. Because the idea of having multiple, news outlets is that they'll cover different things and not all just cover the exact same thing based on who pays them. Well, actually, it's completely different than that. Actually, for once, it's very little to do with money, which is actually very surprising. For once, it's not about money. Now, well, actually, it might be, but we'll get on to this. So, there's a group of people on the internet called social justice warriors. Now, with a lot of people on the internet, they're idiots. Get used to it. A lot of people on the internet are idiots. They, in particular, masquerade behind the idea of fighting for social justice and equality, which is admirable and noble in of itself, but they're still idiots. They, it's really hard to dissect them, but instead of trying to dissect an entire group of people, because that's extremely hard to do, I'm going to call out one particular person who is, I suppose, influential amongst their groups. A woman who you've probably heard by the name of Anita Sarkeesian. Now, she is pretty dumb. Like, dumb as rocks. Dumb. She released several videos on her channel known as The Feminist Frequency, in which she talks about misogyny against women in video games, and various tropes and all sorts of other things. So, let's start by dissecting one of her arguments. When she was talking about video game tropes, there's one in particular she mentioned called the man with boob tropes, which is basically where you just take a generic male character, put some boobs on him, and call it a woman, to try and appeal to the horny teenage audience. And then in the same video, she talked about making a game, and she had charts listing masculine and feminine traits for video game characters. So, here we have the masculine traits. What did she list under masculine, you might ask? Decisiveness, leadership, and a whole lot of other shit that shouldn't have been in either side. And honestly, I'm just like, wait, who's misogynistic here? You're saying that decisiveness and leadership are masculine? My voice is breaking because it's just that dumb. It's like, and you're calling gamers misogynistic while saying that women are incapable of leadership without being men? Or men with boob tropes? It's actually funny because she then proceeded to describe a video game that she would, consider that with a strong female lead. And in her revised chart of masculine and feminine tropes, she basically had all, the female lead that she had designed had all, and I mean all, of the masculine tropes. So her her strong female leadership role character thingy, I really need to learn to do better air quotes, was basically a man with boob tropes in her own definition. Yeah. I'm surprised with her. There is a certain amount of cognitive dissonance that must be going on in her brain. I am surprised it hasn't jumped out of her skull and rubbed itself against the cold, hard concrete begging for death. Because I have no idea how her brain endures that. It's pretty silly. So, needless to say, there are, don't get me wrong, there are some amongst the social justice warrior crowd who are good people and are moderate to decent intelligence. They have their heart in the right place. They want equality for men and women. And I'm not exactly qualified to talk about how to build a society for equal rights of both men and women. That's an entirely another episode on its own. But still. So, the social justice warriors have called out Gamergate as a misogynistic movement. And is basically calling us a bunch of horny teenagers who like to see women in really tight clothing. And they often cite things like Bayonetta. I actually find Bayonetta being a very funny source for them to cite, because it was the character Bayonetta is completely designed by a female character designer. I forget her name because it's Japanese. I'm very bad at remembering and pronouncing Japanese names. I think the only Japanese game developer I know is Shigeru Miyamoto. And I don't even remember what he develops. I know he's at Nintendo. I think he developed Mario? Legend of Zelda? Possibly. So I think that's really all I know of Japanese names. So I find it amusing that they use her as an example. But nevertheless, I digress. Where were we? So we have them kind of calling us out as, you know, misogynists and assholes, I suppose. I'm looking for a word to pair misogyny with, but it is in and of itself such a strong word. That is, like, the idea of misogyny is to literally belittle and see another group, generally gender or race or culture, as less than your own. So that in and of itself is a serious word that really should not be used freely. But, again, let us continue. So this continued to add a pile of fuel to an already burning fire that had sparked up. And eventually, it turned into a shit-flinging storm with the release of the Steam Curator thing. P.S. Steam Curator, you should go join my group. Random, shameless self-promotion. Enough of that, anyway. Where Total Biscuit very quickly took the lead as being the most popular Steam Curator. Now, whether or not you like Total Biscuit, completely irrelevant. There are a lot of people who like him, and if you go look up, there are a ton of articles that, following the release of the Steam Curator thing, because I suppose the gaming websites felt emasculated by their tiny, tiny penises and subscriber size, that they decided to write a bunch of articles denouncing him. And I use that in the most loosest of terms, like in Civilization 5. I'm not even kidding. It's like, he's not a real gaming journalist. He shouldn't be a curator. He doesn't know what good games are. It's basically what they were saying. And like I said, like Total Biscuit or not, he's a popular guy, and I don't think anyone... I was going to say, Total Biscuit doesn't deserve to have a pile of shit flung at him. The reality is, nobody deserves that. And that's extremely troubling. There are also a lot of other YouTubers in particular that started joining the fight fairly early on. For example, the Internet Aristocrat, he's slightly less known, I believe he has around 100,000 subscribers, was in on it fairly early, bashing away at the social justice warriors, telling them to get back, because they were going to ruin the games industry and cause a catastrophe. And this was, mind you, like a year before this whole Gamergate thing even began, that he started this. So I would say he was fairly apt in saying that. This is pretty much the catastrophe he was probably warning us about. And there were some others who joined in. I know Boogie2988. You might have heard him. He's a fairly popular gaming blogger. I think he's got a few millions. I think he's got like 1 million or something subscribers. I don't really know. These aren't necessarily people I watch. So, he came out and revealed that he was actually also being blackmailed. And then a lot of other people started following suit in revealing that, and when I say other people, I mean primarily YouTubers, were receiving blackmail from game developers, who in turn, some of whom revealed that they were being blackmailed by games journalists. You see where this is going? In particular, Divinity Original Sin actually had its box art changed because several games journalists said they wouldn't give them coverage because, heaven forbid, that the female character had an exposed belly. Heaven forbid. And this sort of thing ended up pretty much solidifying the positions. A lot of the attacks on the Gamergate movement have been practically unfounded in just calling us people who support it misogynists, and in some very hilarious cases, simply calling anyone who's not saying that people who support Gamergate don't actually exist and we're just bots, who retweet things and a whole bunch of other stuff, which I found extremely amusing. Like that is a pretty bullshit and hard to back up claim. Come on. And to this day we still have more shit that gets continued to build up on this. Let's see. Yes. And there was the great 4chan split, which ended up happening over this when a bunch of 4chan moderators decided to start censoring Gamergate related things. Yeah. So now we have 8chan. I'm still not going on either one of those, not touching them with a 10-foot pole. Not my place. Around the time that you start having a forum board that tells people to mix mustard gas because it'll make cool crystal formations, I just start to say, no, that cesspit is not for me. Now, 4chan. Okay, where the hell was I? Oh yes, 4chan. In addition, there were some other controversial things, including Reddit deleting a post on our gaming containing 2,500 comments and a whack load of upvotes. It just gone. Poof. Overnight. And our gaming and our games in particular have banned the discussion of the Gamergate tag for actually moderately good reasoning. For the general reason I usually stay out of political shitstorms, but hate to find myself found in the middle of one. So that's just great. It seems like a lot of groups. Now there are unfounded accusations that the moderation and admin staff of these sites are currently or have been under threat from social justice warriors or even infiltrated by them. Now, there was some interesting posts where a bunch of feminists threatened Reddit admins with false rape reports if they didn't censor certain discussions, which should be troubling. Should be extremely troubling. And it is. It is. Now, fun fact, I have had people threaten to rape me. Like, I give my sympathies out to girls on the internet who have to deal with guys threatening to rape them. I have also had to deal with that. I have had 2 cases of homosexual gentlemen politely offer me forceful anal intercourse. How many words did I just cross that shouldn't be crossed? Words you don't usually use in the same sentence. Polite, offer, and forceful. Either way, so I know what it's like, and it does suck. It does suck. But trust me, it's a bit of a problem on the internet. People threaten to rape people. It's the veil of anonymity. And honestly, my general tip is the same that my tip I gave on the earlier part of the episode was, people are idiots. People on the internet are idiots. Get used to it. I think it all comes down to that. Now, let's see. Is there anything else I'm missing here? Let's see. Oh yeah, the Escapist magazine was taken down due to a DDoS attack, because they actually came out and revised their editorial practices and said, yeah, this is a problem. We should definitely change these things, so that way we can be accountable, you know? And they revised their editorial practices. And because they did that and came out in support of Gamergate and said, yeah, we should see a lot of media do this, they got DDoSed. You're really making a great argument there, whatever the other side of Gamergate is called. Because at that point, you're just being malicious and destructive. Now, it's not to say that Gamergate hasn't had its own fair share of problems like that, including vast quantities of harassment on Twitter and other forms of communication with people on the other side. I generally dislike anyone who's dumb enough to do that. I have a pretty general rule. The second you see someone else as an antithesis, as someone who is your opposite in its complete and entirety, you are, yourself, an extremist. because you believe that someone else's beliefs are so different that they cannot be reconciled with your own. Now, it's fine that people may have some different opinions and beliefs on things, but the idea that it isn't even worth trying to convince them, you should just flat out tell them that they should die and go hang themselves and get raped by 10 men, you're an asshole. Everyone on the internet's an asshole. It seems to keep coming back to this whole thing, isn't it? I suppose that's the lesson of all of this. But I'm throwing my hat in with the Gamergate movement. I have supported them the entire time, but I haven't publicly outcried it, as I said at the start of the episode. I'm a gamer, I'm here to have fun, and apparently this is now going to compromise my ability to do that, and I've been put in the middle of this. And I'm not particularly pleased about that either. So, it's rather distressing. And unfortunate. I really wish I didn't have to make a video like this, but let us be a reminder, don't try and blackmail me. So, hats off to you Gamergate guys. I give you my support. And I suppose with that I can draw this to an end. There's a ton of stuff that you can read about Gamergate. And it's continually ongoing. As it stands right now, a bunch of advertisers are pulling from Gawker, Kotaku, and so on. And this isn't necessarily due to the Gamergate movement itself, so much as just it's due to there being a political shitstorm. As it turns out, advertisers don't like that. Who'd have thought? But yeah, I'm going to wrap this up here. It's already been 21 minutes. I've just been friggin' rambling about politics and stuff I generally wish I didn't have to talk about. But, unfortunately, like I said, I'm being forced into it here. Put in a position I didn't really want to be. And, I hope this has been at least a little bit educational. And, I hope you guys understand that this is unfolding in a rather worrying manner. That this is going to actually be a very important, political movement for gamers as a whole. Because we have to shake off social justice idiots. And, you know, actually try and establish that we are an accepting group of people. Sans a few idiots on the internet, I think actually most people would be happy to see more girl gamers, and would be fine seeing a lot of strong female leads who are dressed moderately. I mean, there are a lot of times where I look at girls going, that's a stupid outfit. Even when I was 16. I thought that, because hey, that is to say that the opponents, you know, the people who are calling for change in the gaming media are not all wrong. I would like to point this out. Just because I'm against them in this particular debate does not mean I think of them entirely as wrong. They do make some good points, but unfortunately for them, the people they rally behind and the people who lead them in their charge here are, how to put delicately, not the best choice for leaders. It is what it is, I suppose. But, like I said, I've thrown my hat in, and so be it. I have made my choice, and I will live with the consequences. Thank you everybody for watching. As always, this has been your lovely host, Kailvin, signing off.